Well, good morning. Is anybody awake out there? Can you hear me? Everybody stand up just for 1 second. Shake it up a little bit. All right, sit down. That has nothing to do with our presentation, other than just getting you out of your seat for a few seconds. Good morning, my name is Darrin Grondel. I'm the director of the Washington Traffic Safety Commission, and it's truly an honor to be here. I've been up to Canada a couple times on this very topic, and every time I come here and we have the discussions, I learn something new, and so it's very important. I love my neighbors to the north, and I've met a lot of you here yesterday for some of the workshop and then at the reception. So thank you, and it's been kind of fun to come up here, and it's been nice to actually be in some sunshine because the last few days we've been nothing but rain down in my neck of the woods. Brian, thank you very much for the invitation and appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this panel. As we go through this, I'm going to take you back a little bit in history, back to 1998, actually back to 1967 first, and just talk briefly about the Washington Traffic Safety Commission, which is the chair of our commission is the governor, and I am appointed by him. And these key agency heads are part of the commission. We work collaboratively on a lot of different projects, and our whole focus as a commission, I have 25 employees, is to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes on Washington roadways. And so we've been around since 1967. We receive a lot of federal funding that goes in so that we can work projects and programs around the state to address traffic safety. And it's nice to have these types of political officials working with us to help move policy, legislation, and things around within their own agencies. So now I'm going to fast forward you to 1998. In 1998, we had a citizens initiative, or a public initiative, to legalize medical marijuana. Now, at the time, nobody really knew what that was going to entail, but it did provide an affirmative defense against criminal prosecution if you were a medical marijuana user. The problem was, who's going to prescribe or recommend that you have marijuana, and what does it mean to have, what possessions you could be in, or what amounts you could have? Because what was the conditions that you were using it for? What was the proper dosage? What was the frequency of use? Well, they languished over this for about 10 years and came up with this idea that a definition of 60-day supply was 24 ounces or 15 plants. Now, you all saw in your thing about 4 plants. You could have up to 15 plants. Now, the interesting thing here is we had no physician registry. We had no idea who was actually prescribing or recommending. We had no patient registry. So we had no idea who was actually getting medical marijuana. So in many respects, we feel like we've had recreational marijuana since 1998. As a young trooper on the road, we'd get handed these little green cards. And we'd find marijuana in the car, and they'd hand us this green card, and we'd say, well, what's that? And they said, oh, this is my medical marijuana card, so I can be in possession of that. And it was very, very confusing for all of us, working the road, health, all those different things. So now, when you think about 24 ounces, and how many grams are in an ounce? This is one of your brain teaser questions. It's almost 28 grams per an ounce, but these are all the signs and symptoms. When you look at these different things, you go, why would anybody want to be driving a car after or operating a vehicle or anything after utilizing marijuana? But this is what I wanted to show you. Here is an ounce, kind of as an equivalent, and you can get about 60 joints out of an ounce, depending upon how big you roll the joints. It can go anywhere from 50 to 60. So you can think about 24 ounces times 60 for a medical marijuana patient. That's a lot of smoking. So, but then the issue now, particularly today, when you start talking about policies and saying, yeah, you could have up to 4 plants, you could have up to 15 plants. Now, I think in C-46 there was some legislation in there that specifically restricted the size of the plants. I don't know if that's still in there. It got taken out, because then you're going to end up with these. Now you look at that and you go, that's a retirement package right there. I will grow that and I will sell it and I'm going to be on the beaches in the Bahamas somewhere. We estimate that this plant's probably about 20 feet high. We're not sure about the radius, but these are very regular in some of the grows in the Northwest. I'm not going to say which state because it wasn't Washington, but this is what we're seeing. So when we start talking about plants, what are we actually talking about? When we talk about recreational, what are we talking about? What kind of products? One of the issues that came out from the legalization of marijuana was it wasn't so much about legalization as it was about commercialization. So now you start not only seeing flower, you now see candies, candy bar, marijuana butter, all kinds of different products. If you can put cannabis in it, they'll put it in it. And that's not I'm not being disparaging, I'm just saying you will see a lot of different things out there. Smoking marijuana has taken on all different new forms now that we've seen in our state. Not just from a joint, but now you see it from vaporizers or from dabbing products. And the vaporizers you can put in, they can heat that up really quick, and it has very little odor. So if you're working the road and you don't smell marijuana, but yet they may be exhibiting those effects, this could be why. We're seeing this, when it emits, it may have a little bit of odor, but if you're seeing them, after, you may not have that particular odor. Inhalers look just like a regular inhaler for somebody with asthma. This one particularly just has a little bit of the leaf on the inhaler. But we've seen high school students with these in their bags, and what it's loaded with is marijuana. If you go into High Times, you can actually purchase these types of inhalers, and this is part of the commercialization. School teachers, they may have somebody that's, or a PE teacher may have somebody that they think is asthmatic and using an inhaler, when in reality, they're using marijuana. So all of these things, it puts a whole new twist and perspective on what we're seeing. So orals and digestives, we've seen these. We've seen potato chips. We've seen candy bars. We've seen a lot of different types of products. You see capsules, raw marijuana, cannabis and carrots. So this is really just to kind of highlight. You see this in a lot of different forms. Officers that are working the streets may see this in very different forms in the car, not just a bag full of weed, but in different forms and in different functions. They'll use it as tinctures. Let's put a little thing underneath their tongue. And sublingually, it absorbs into the body quickly. Lozenges, sprays, and yes, even suppositories. So, and then transdermal, you may see some of these creams and patches. One of my daughter-in-laws, she had this hemp cream at the house. And I walked over and I said, "How dare you bring this into my house?" And she said, "It's okay." So I flipped it around and it says, "Contains no THC." I was like, okay. So, but you see these different products. I had the Washington Trucking Association contact me and said one of our truck drivers was caught. He had a marijuana THC-infused patch for his back pain. The question was, does that come through transdermally, get into the fats, and become an impairment? I don't know how to answer that question. Oh, 5 minutes. I thought you were a question. So, but you start seeing different types of products out there. You may see stuff without THC in it. We know that there's over 480 different chemical compounds in marijuana. Over 120 to 140, depending upon the literature, of different cannabinoids within marijuana. We know that THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol, is the one that's psychoactive that causes the impairment. Are there other things out there? So is there some legitimate uses for marijuana? I think that the research and time will show that. Then fast forward here to November 6th of 2012. We had another public initiative that then came forward. This was actually sponsored by the American Civil Liberties Union and Rick Steves, the big travel guru, and then Peter Lewis, who was the former CEO, I think, of Liberty Mutual, who put in quite a bit of money to help forward this campaign, and it passed at about 56 to 44%. And, it led to legalization of recreational marijuana. 1 ounce of usable material or bud, up to 16 ounces of a solid infused product like a candy bar or something like that. So there's 16 ounces you could have up to that. I know the big thing is about brownies. 72 ounces of liquid product, which could be like a soda pop with no THC limit. So you can imagine one of these big 72-ounce, drinks. You go to one of your gas stations and get a big 44-ounce Big Gulp or something. It's 72 ounces that you can have, and then up to 7 grams of concentrate or hash oil. What was interesting is under the original legislation, it was illegal to grow your own, and it had to be lab tested and controlled for pesticides. But under the original legislation, medical marijuana, we went through that part of it, but it did not have to be lab tested. It did not have to be controlled for pesticide, which was really counterintuitive when you're thinking about this being used as medical marijuana. That has now since changed. These are the different, our law put it in that we'd have 5 nanograms per milliliter, penalties for illegal grows and quantities. But what's interesting is that this was a public initiative. This didn't go through a legislative body in order to be passed. It actually said that the legislators could not change any substantive portions of the public initiative for 24 months. It was indicated that we would have up to $2 billion in tax revenue. And we've only received up to, I think last year we had up to $305 or up to $356 million, far short of what they promised. So these are, the marijuana products that are out there. What I wanted to share this with you is that in 2015, they regulated the medical and the recreational pieces so that they are now the same. So a lot of those disparities are changed now. They have a single system of licensed production, processing, and the tax rate for it is about 36%. So that consists of labeling and product standards. If you go to this website, these are 2 reports that we have put out. The good question that we keep getting at the Traffic Safety Commission is, have you seen fatal crashes increase since the legalization? And that's a hard question to answer because we had no good baseline data. And I think you're struggling with the very same thing. And so, but what we looked at in 2014 is since the legalization, what did we actually see? And it's more of a descriptive report. It doesn't provide you with that answer, but you can kind of see that for yourself. And then we did a marijuana use alcohol report that just came out in April looking at, because those are the 2 most prevalent drugs that we see in fatal crashes and in arrest. So I wanted to just share with this, in our little state, in Washington State, we have about 525 approved licenses for sale. Not all of those are active. Some of them have just received their license and then are in the process of getting their companies or their stores open. About 1,000 producers and processors. The grow canopy is about almost 14 million square feet. Some of that may be changing, but $4 million in average sales just in Washington State. And so, and then you can see the tax obligations, each of those, 65, 185, 305, and I believe the 18 was about $365 million in that. But you can see the industry, what they're anticipating for fiscal year 2018, which will go from July 1 to June, which just finished, or is just finishing, is anticipated to be about $365 million. And they're making about $2 billion in sales just on the marijuana market. The interesting thing is this going to eliminate the black market? We've just had some reports that have been provided to us, and what we're seeing is it actually has created a safer haven for the black market. We are seeing where we have a group that's come in, they buy homes. It's actually been Chinese nationals that have come in, they purchase homes for cash. They bring in professional electricians and everything else. They run grow houses. And in Washington State, we did, I think it was 111 search warrants we did in Gary's Harbor, Thurston, and King County. And it was on these grows. And most of the bud tenders that are operating these have no idea. They just were asked to go and tend the bud. and make it to grow it, because they can sell it for like $1,200 in Washington State for like a pound, and they can go to North Carolina and sell it for $4,000. And so what we're seeing is a lot of the marijuana in Idaho. In fact, the Idaho State Police has put additional troopers in the Panhandle because of the amount of marijuana that's come across coming out of Washington. So it's not necessarily impacting the black market. We're still seeing there's a huge market for it still. We do a seed to sale. Has to be in the DNA database with the Liquor and Cannabis Board. And if they find stuff that's outside of that, they can confiscate. But yet we are still seeing a lot of marijuana diverted out of our state. It didn't really change that. 1 minute? Okay. So we do have some specific things about retail, consumer safety. These are the kinds of products that are actually prohibited because they are attractive to children. And believe me, our poison control calls went through the roof right after the legalization, because many of the kids were getting into this, because many of the original products were actually attractive to kids. They had these small products. There's some specific laws that we have in place. You cannot do free Costco samplings at the marijuana facilities. However, the only thing that they can do is give you a free lockbox at a certain purchase, and that is to help keep your marijuana safe, truly. So, because this is what we get. Now, this is a young lady that was, or young mother down in Arizona, who said that she had made this this macaroni and cheese with THC for her husband, but actually her toddler got into it, ate it. In the report, it says that the young child actually started to exhibit the signs and symptoms of marijuana use. And so the mother started laughing about that, thinking that was really funny. Then she took her in the backyard and put her in her little bathing pool to help shock her system. That's what we've kind of seen. This is in Maricopa County in Arizona. So it's happening everywhere. But this is one example that I'd just like to show is, and it's recent, is why we keep it out of the hands of kids. Polydrug use right here, it has, from 2008, it has gone up significantly. Our alcohol-only fatals have come down. So as you guys are still seeing almost the same trend. Polydrug use is going up, and alcohol is going down. Marijuana only is this bottom line. If you look at 2008 to 2012, pretty consistent through there. Went up in 2012, down 13, because then our sales actually went in, our first sales were in 19, and then it's continued to go up. It wasn't the increase that we thought it was going to be, but this is marijuana or actually THC only. Was the fatal crash as a result of the marijuana? That's a whole nother question, but that was the only drug on board. So we are seeing this. We're seeing the increases from THC plus other drugs in our testing amounts. When you look at marijuana use increase as far as crash risk, we know what those crash risks are at alcohol at different levels. In distraction, what we hear from the marijuana industry is, see, look, THC is safer than drowsy driving and distraction. And this, my friends, is very misleading, because when you look at this crash risk is based off of very old 3 to 6% THC. And we're seeing 29% or higher flower concentrates and oils that are like up to 93%. That crash risk is going to probably be much, much higher. So don't be fooled by the idea that it's safer. Because our kids have told us in the state, you legalized it, now it's safer. That was the perception that our youth got. And that's one of the messagings that we've had to put back out there, is how dangerous this can be. The idea also is that I'm a safer driver, I slow down. I zone out on the road. And I thought, that's not the answer we wanted to hear. But one of the things that you do hear is that I slow down. One slide I did not have in this presentation is that there was an evaluation done on drug recognition expert evaluations where THC was the only substance on board. They looked at what the probable cause for the stop was. What do you think the number one cause for the stop was? Speed over legal. And they looked at it between above 5 nanograms and below 5 nanograms, and there wasn't much of a difference. So in their own mind, do they feel like they're actually driving slower, so they compensate to go faster to actually catch up to themselves? So That's all for us to look at. But one of the things is don't be caught off guard or fooled by the fact that they're going to be safer drivers. And with that, I love you all, and turn the time over back to Brian.